How's it going, Knicks fans? Welcome back to Fireside Knicks with your boys, Alex and Justin. Today we're talking about three players who could break out for the Knicks in 2023 to the 2024 season. Now, we know there's a lot of rumors going on, a lot of stars connected to the Knicks, and they're remaining patient. I think that's the right thing to do. You don't want to go out and just get a guy to get a guy. You want to wait until the right opportunity crosses your desk, whether it's Joel Embiid, whether it's OG Anunoby. There's a lot of different options that could be available for the Knicks, but there's a possibility that they just go into the season with Brunson, Randall, RJ Barrett as their top three guys, and at the end of the day, they could look to the trade deadline to acquire a guy mid-season. I think that actually isn't the worst avenue, just for the basic perspective that you get a guy that's healthy at that point in the season. You know what I mean? If you go out and trade for someone right now, who's to say that they're even healthy when you're trying to make that last push toward a championship? You know, that's something that I think is a positive variable to consider in the fact that you go get a guy right before the trade deadline, and you get a guy that's healthy at that point in the season, which is months in. So I think that there is some logic to that entire move. But we want to talk about a couple guys that have that upside this upcoming campaign that could really help change the course of this team in terms of boosting who's already on the roster and not who they can acquire and that's off the roster. So Justin, before we dive into the three players we have in mind today, how do you do today, my friend?
I'm doing good, and so as far as players that I really think can break out next season, the obvious candidate that I think everybody's probably thinking of is Quentin Grimes. He wasn't even starting at the start of last season. He was coming off the bench, and then when Evan Fournier was taken out of the rotation, Tibbs put Grimes in the starting lineup, and it was like an immediate, instant fit. The 3-point shooting, the defense. Everything was there, and we saw some flashes of other things that Grimes is capable of. We've seen him attack closeouts really well off the dribble. We've seen him. He has some passing in his arsenal too. The dump off passes to Mitch in the paint. Some of the. He can really unlock that full. He's one of the better passers on the team, quite frankly. So I think in year 3, skill set, especially with more playing time. So. I think he can unlock that full potential that he's got. He's got a whole lot of arsenal, and I'm quite excited to see what he's capable of, to be honest. And that's my first player, to be honest. That's my first player of who I think is going to break out.
Grimes has the potential to be a tremendous player in the NBA, and I've kind of stood by that for a long time now. Is going into his third season, he can shoot, he can play defense, and I actually think there's a lot of untapped potential there when it comes to scoring and driving and showcasing that aggressiveness that he definitely has. We've seen Grimes go balls to the wall, to the rim, and dunk and attack players, and I don't think they let him do that enough. I think they actually, ask him to sit in the corner, take those 3-point shots, try to be effective from downtown, and he is. He is a good shooter. I even think he could increase his volume a little bit. Took 5.7 shots from beyond the arc last year per game, hit 386. That's a good clip. I think he could hit 39+% this upcoming season, going into a third year, average about 30 minutes per game, 11.3 points, 3.2 rebounds, 2.1 assists. There is more to find with Quentin Grimes. Now, the question is, how does he play alongside Donte DiVincenzo? Who gets the minutes here? How do they spread out the minutes? Do they want more shooters on the field, or on the court rather? Do they want more guards? Do they want more wings? Those defensive wings. You have Josh Hart. How do you split up the reps now in the minutes between all of these guys? And it's really, really difficult to kind of estimate where the playing time is going to go. But at the same time, you just roll with a hot hand. I think that's kind of generally what you want to do. The competition between DiVincenzo and Grimes is going to bring the most out of Grimes, who's the younger of the two, obviously, and still on his rookie contract. I think that there is a lot of potential here that is not being tapped just yet. He can be a tremendous defender. He can be a really good scorer. And I really don't think we've seen the best of Grimes yet. I think that this could be his breakout season for those reasons. But, how do you think he splits up the playing time with Donte DiVincenzo? How do you think the minutes get spread out here? Because it's kind of a position battle at this point. The Knicks went from not having that many wings to having too many wings. So, someone's got to give. Something's got to give. How do you think they split it up this upcoming season?
Well, I would assume that he's going to start in the starting lineup like he did last season. And, as far as minutes go between him and DiVincenzo, I feel like it's going to be a type of flow of the game type of thing for Tibbs. If Grimes is in foul trouble or something in the second quarter, DiVincenzo's going to play a lot more minutes. If DiVincenzo's having a tough time with bigger wings, then Grimes will probably see more time. I feel like it'd be a flow of the game type of thing. I think it's a good thing to have. You have multiple options that you can plug in at certain times of the game. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Obviously, you might say, oh, well, Grimes is going to play less minutes because of this. This is stupid, da-da-da. But it's at the same time, it's a good thing. Grimes isn't a primary ball handler on the team. So having DiVincenzo be like kind of like insurance, I guess, I feel like is a good thing to have. It gives the Knicks more depth. They already have Quickly. Now you put DiVincenzo there. You just added guard depth. I mean, it makes you a lot deeper team. And yeah, that's kind of how I think it's gonna be a flow of the game type of thing with them. And yeah, that's where I stand on that. I think it'll be a flow of the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally fair. I think kind of the hot hand mentality is also kind of where I stand. But then, looking over at another guy, you talked about this with Dylan a couple days ago, Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson has the potential, and you told me that right before we started the podcast, that he has all NBA defense potential. Like, this guy could be a superstar defender. We've seen the potential. We've seen the blocks. We've seen the vision, the steals. Like, the guy is a stud. Now, the Knicks don't really ask him to be much of a scorer, and that's okay. And he gets pissed off every now and then. He goes out and he tweets about it. But I feel as though his defensive value cannot be matched. It's unparalleled. He dominated the Cleveland Cavaliers. You look at Jared Allen, look at Evan Mobley. He destroyed them. He absolutely body bagged them in a postseason game. Now the Heat was a little bit of a different story because the Knicks were banged up and they definitely played a lot more better team basketball. They shot really, really well down the stretch, and Robinson wasn't able to contribute in those ways. Didn't rebound the same as he did against the Guardians. Maybe just kind of exerted all that energy and he was just tired. Who knows? But the guy averaged 9.4 rebounds per game this past season, a career high. When it comes to Mitchell Robinson, it comes down to one thing: staying healthy. If he can stay healthy, he is going to be elite. And keep in mind, guys, maybe you guys don't know this, he's 25 years old. He is still in the middle of his prime. Some would argue he's not even in his prime yet. So, I would say for a 7-foot, 240-pound guy that is a defense-first kind of player, who actually has pretty good handles. You've seen those those clips that he does off the basketball court, or rather just in the gym. Like he's got some serious handles. Like he can move. But I think that the Knicks want him in that defensive role, and he has the qualities and the capabilities to be a tremendous player in that facet and really take this team to another level on that on the court in terms of rebounding, offensive rebounding. Averaged 4.5 per game last year, another career high. What are your thoughts on him and the potential here that maybe we haven't unlocked just yet with Mitchell Robinson?
Yeah, like me and Dylan alluded to last time, like you said, I believe Mitch has all defense potential. He's one of the better rim protectors in the NBA. He always has been. I think that the health has been kind of holding him back. The last 2 seasons he's been relatively healthy. I mean, he played about, I think, 72 games in 21-22, and he played 59 this year, which, 59 ain't great, but considering it's Mitchell Robinson, that's pretty good. And he was healthy for the playoffs, which is a big thing. If you're healthy for the playoffs, that's a big thing, because he wasn't healthy for the playoffs when we made it 2 years ago, so he didn't get a taste of that. He got a taste of playoff basketball this season, and he actually looked great in the first round, like you said. Obviously struggled in the second round, but the whole team did. So, I can't really be like, oh, Mitch stunk in the second round. Well, everyone stunk in the second round except Jalen Brunson. So, I mean, can't really give Mitch too much crap for that. But, I think that I think in this next year, in this upcoming season rather, I think Mitch has the potential to really showcase and fully blossom what he can do, and he can make a run for an all defensive team. I mean, the defense has always been there. That's always been one thing. The offensive rebounding has always been there. The Knicks are a much better team defensively when he's on the court, and there's a lot of stats to prove that. When he's injured or whatever, the Knicks defense just takes a massive hit. You feel Mitch's presence missed when he's not on the court. So I believe that next season he can take another leap and kind of enter the all defensive categories, and he'll get into that conversation. I mean, I think he probably should have already been in that conversation, to be quite frank, but maybe a full season of him healthy will kind of give him the respect he deserves, I guess, across the league, because I think he's one of the more underrated players in the NBA, to be quite honest. Mitch is. I think he's underrated. And yeah, I that's where I stand on that. I think next season we could really see him truly blossom and make a run at all defense. I don't think he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year, but he can definitely make a run at all defense for sure.
I don't see why not. And you look at Mitchell Robinson, and you kind of mentioned health again there. And ultimately, when you think about what he's capable of doing, a lot of his injuries have been freak injuries. They have a broken hand or a foot injury. They've been kind of weird, freaky things. They haven't been consistent to the same. It's not the same knee, or he had an ACL tear. Knock on wood. They've been random freak things that have happened to him because he goes 100%. And that's what I love about Mitch is he's 100%. He puts all that effort in to being a great defender. Being healthy will just keep him flowing with the momentum. But the last player that we want to talk about here is a guy that could end up being moved by the Knicks this offseason if they end up getting a player like Embiid or a Paul George or Anunoby. Like, they want to go out and get someone. I don't think they're going to go for George at this point. I think the asking price is just significantly too high, and he wants another contract after, and the Knicks don't want to pay him. I think he's like 34 or something like that, 32, 34 years old. So, RJ Barrett, this is a player who has been very inconsistent. I would argue that his best season when he was 20 years old, 2020-21, averaged 19.6 points this past campaign, shot 434 from the field, 310 from downtown, had effective field grade of 740. That was the second best in his career, but his rebounds were down, his assists were down, his steals were down, like everything was down, everything, and that's the unfortunate reality with RJ is like, you don't know what version you're going to get, and we've seen the flashes of brilliance. We've seen, like, he can be a great player. It just hasn't all come together. Like, he hasn't been able to put it together consistently on an every single game basis where he just dominates. Like, or he has a half where he just raises the bar. Or, fourth quarter comes around, he picks it up. He isn't capable of that yet. I think that he goes through flashes where he'll come on the floor and he'll get into a groove and you just can't stop him. You just keep feeding him the rock and he keeps hitting shots or he keeps driving to the basket. I love his aggressiveness. I wish he drove more sometimes and just had some more confidence in that regard. But his defense last year was also terrible. Like, he had a 117 defensive rating. That was the worst in his career by a pretty significant margin. Like, he was really bad. And he wants to be an all-NBA defensive player. Like, that he said that publicly, like, maybe it was last offseason. So, RJ wants it. I don't think the work ethic there's a lack of work ethic there. I just think that he's young. Like, remember, he's 23 years old. He's going to a 4-year deal averaging like $25-26 million per season. That's not a bad deal for a player with that much upside. Another team is going to see that upside and want him as a prominent piece if the Knicks are willing to give him up, and I think they have to be for the right player. But RJ Barrett, like, if you're going to keep him, you're betting on the fact that he's breaking out. He can break out. Like, we know he's good. We know he can be great. It's just a matter of doing it consistently. And so, like, yes, I think he could definitely break out in 2023-24. But the fact of the matter is, really comes down to him and his confidence, and comes down to him and his consistency, because that's going to be the deciding factor.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with you. In the past, we've seen RJ do specific things well at certain times in his career. I mean, in 2021, he shot 40% from three. His defense was great, and then the following season, we saw him be the number one option in the second half of the year, and he averaged like 24 points a game. So, those are all-star numbers, you could argue. So we've seen him do certain things great at different times in his career, though. The real question is, when is he going to put all of that together, When is he going to consistently be good three-point shooter, good defender, good scorer, We keep seeing little flashes, and then we're kind of just waiting for it to all come together, And as far as last season goes, I think he kind of had an unlucky last season because he started the season off slow, like he always does, but he was really in a groove around November, December. He was really picking it up. I believe he had a 40-point game against Chicago at one point, too. And then he had that freak hand injury against Dallas where he, broke his own finger or whatever. That was a weird injury, and it kind of derailed his season from there. Never really found the jump shot again after that. I don't think he was playing like himself. I think he had just started to figure out how to play with Brunson and Randall. I think he was just starting to figure out how to fit alongside those guys, and then he broke his hand or his finger, whatever. So I think that injury kind of screwed his season over. And he didn't have a great rest of the regular season, as we know, but the fact that he played so well in the playoffs is encouraging to me because his first merry-go-round in the playoffs was ugly, as we all know. So the fact that he was that good in the playoffs, you could argue he was our second best player in the playoffs, to be honest. You could argue that. So the fact that he was that good in the playoffs is really encouraging to me, and I feel like he can carry that into next season, to be honest. And like you said, his work ethic is not any question. We all know RJ's a super hard worker, so, I feel like he can build off of that great postseason that he had and enter next season and have a much better season. I would assume, honestly, I'm banking on him having a much better season, to be honest. He was really starting to find a groove last season, like I said, until that freak injury with his finger, So, honestly, it's a question of consistency with RJ, but I think next season is basically make or break for him. It's either he puts it all together, or if he doesn't put it all together, then we know who he is. That's kind of where I stand on RJ. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet, to be honest, like some people may think, oh, we saw the best of him 2 years ago when he was the number one option for half a season and averaged 24 points a game, whatever. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. I think there's a lot more in the tank. Like you said, he's only 23, so he's one of the younger players on the roster, despite being in his fifth season, I believe. So, I think he can. I think it's time for him to really tap into all that and put it all together. And if not, then unfortunately we know who he is, and maybe he's not a long-term piece for this team. But that's kind of where I stand on RJ. I kind of want to hear your thoughts on that. What do you think about that?
I mean, I'll leave you guys with this. OG Anunoby, guy we've talked about, it's been in the media a lot as a potential link with the Knicks, is 26 years old, right? He's 26 years old. He has one more year, and then he's going to get a monster contract, probably getting far more than RJ Barrett is currently about to start in his 4-year deal. So, you ask yourself this: can RJ Barrett be better than OG Anunoby in 3 years? I would say absolutely. I would say absolutely he can be better than OG Anunoby in 3 years. So, are you willing to run the risk of letting that go? The argument here is if you go out and get a player like Embiid or a third superstar that's going to help you exercise your championship window right now. NBA championship windows are short. You get 2 years maximum sometimes for these teams, unless you have a superstar. If you've got Steph Curry or LeBron, unless you have one of those guys, which is very hard to acquire. You're in trouble. Like, you need a well-rounded roster to compete against some of these teams. Or Jimmy Butler just going freaking crazy. So, ask yourself this: if you're gonna move RJ Barrett, if you're going to get an Embiid, you pull the trigger and you don't even think about it twice. If you're gonna go for an Anunoby, maybe Anunoby is not going to be the guy that pushes you to a championship. Maybe he's not going to be the guy that changes the course of this team that much. Like, maybe that difference is marginal. Maybe it's not the significant one that you're looking for. You take the bet on RJ Barrett, you roll with the youth, you roll with what he can be, and you hope to God he figures it out this upcoming season. I think that's ultimately what the Knicks are thinking. They're not going to overpay for a guy that might be marginally better than RJ Barrett. They're going to pay and use RJ Barrett as a trade chip if they're getting a legitimate superstar that's going to take this Knicks team to another level we have not seen. Joel Embiid, do I think that he would probably give us the best chance at winning a championship? Absolutely. I think that's objectively true. He's an MVP. He's a good defender. He's, good locker room presence. The guy, he was a little bit injured during the postseason last year, but I think having him, takes a lot of pressure off of Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson last season in the playoffs, he was doubled. They just doubled him up, and they forced Randall to beat him, and Randall couldn't do it. You know what I mean? Randall had the ankle injury or whatever it might be. Maybe he just isn't that good in the playoffs, in the big moments. But Brunson couldn't do it alone. If you get Embiid, you cannot double Jalen Brunson. You cannot stop Embiid, Brunson, and Randall. It's not possible. So the question is, what would the 76ers want for him? Definitely RJ Barrett, and I'm moving RJ Barrett in a hot second. If it comes down to that. So, that's kind of what I'll leave you guys with. I'm utilizing him in a big trade, but if it's for a marginally better player, I don't think it's worth it. I think you stick with the upside there and continue to, round out his development and hope he comes full circle and kind of builds on his potential. But guys, I'd love to hear your perspectives below in the YouTube comment section. As always, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Knicks episode.